This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everybody. Getting a nice early start this morning. I'm going to call this meeting of the Green Bank Board of Directors to order. First order of business, public comments. Do we have any members of the public checking in? Not hearing any. Moving on to the consent agenda. So the first item would be the meeting minutes. Any comments, questions, concerns about the minutes? No?
No.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Steve Meyer, motion to approve.
Second.
Steve.
John Harry.
Thank you, and thank you, Banu, for jumping in to help too. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes are approved. So we're moving on to item 4, and so that's investment updates and recommendations. Yes.
Cool. Just real quickly, Lonnie, this is Brian. Just a couple of quick items. We did leave the progress to targets memos for the board members in the packet to just report out on Q4. Same thing for Inclusive Prosperity Capital. And then we have a new member to the board. So Lonnie, I don't know if you wanted to introduce Adrian to the board.
I would love to. We are so thrilled to have Adrian Farrar-Huel join our board, who has just an incredible, actually an international background. She is the president and the CEO of the Greater Bridgeport Community Enterprises. She grew up in the Bridgeport area, I think Stratford, she told us the other day, and actually ended up in Europe with experience in France, in Russia, in Ireland, in real estate development and marketing. And in 2002, she returned to the United States and pursued a career in economic development, where she designed, funded, and operated workforce training programs. And as we all know, this is one of our top priorities, our workforce training program. So she's going to bring a wealth of experience. She's also created the Greater Bridgeport Community Enterprises. She's the green team in the Bridgeport area, and deals with 3 areas of green contracting, environmental and brownfields remediation, weatherization, and energy conservation. So, see all the talents she's bringing to us. In April of 2012, Governor Malloy named her to his Modernizing Recycling Working Group. She also serves on the Connecticut Department of Labor's Green Jobs Committee. Most recent appointments include the Connecticut Energy Efficiency Board and the U.S. Department of Agriculture New Beginning Farmer Advisory Committee, which, quite frankly, the Conference of State Governments, one of the groups that pulls all these legislators together from different states, I'm getting a lot of calls from them about this. So we'll talk about that, Adrienne, because they want a presentation.
Oh.
Just write that down right now, okay? just something else. Anyway, just to conclude before we hear from Adrienne, she's a graduate of Antioch College with a history and economics degree, and got her MBA from Harvard Business School. So no pressure, we just expect great things. Good morning, Adrienne.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Lonnie, for that incredible introduction. You managed to cover all my 50 years of activity. I know a lot of you on this board from previous lives in the Efficiency Board, like with Eric and with Mike Lee. Met Brenda before, who apparently has a history in Bridgeport as well. So I'm really glad to join these old friends and meet some new ones in this adventure that I'm coming on with you, this journey. So I'm delighted to be with you. I know there's a lot to learn, and I'm excited about this experience that I'm embarking on. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you for getting the governor to recognize that I could serve on this committee. I'm really delighted. Thank you.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you. And actually, you're showing up in a great day because we're going to do some investment updates and recommendations. And one of the things we're really proud of is the launching of our Green Liberty Bonds in 2021. And so we want to hear some updates on that. Is that going to be Bert, or are you starting with Brian?
That we'll start with Bert and Mike. And just before we get started, I'm just going to tell my team here, as we go through each of these updates, just step back a little bit, provide a little bit more general overview on the programs and the products so that we can give Adrian and the rest of the board members a bit of more detail on the programs and products that you're running. So that would be very useful. Thanks, gang. All right, Bert, I'll turn it to you. Bert, you might be on mute.
Hey, Bert.
Uh-oh. Bert, you there? Can anybody hear Bert? There you go. Can hear you now.
You know, technology. Tried it 3 times before we started this meeting, and it worked, and then it craps out. Anyway, well, yes. So
it's a metaphor. It's like life, Bert.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, our Green Liberty Bonds. Just by way of background here, this is really showing why don't we go to the next slide, please? Because I love this slide, not only because Brian Garcia looks so well in that nice red tie, but because it happens to be our BondLink site, which really introduces the concept of our Green Liberty Bonds. And the idea behind Green Liberty Bonds is really to open up investment opportunities in green energy for the citizens of Connecticut. For many years, people across the state were wondering, yeah, how can we support you? How can we support the Green Bank? And this actually came as an inspiration from Brian Garcia, who I'm sure he would be quick to say he was inspired by others, but hearkening back to the war bonds during the Second World War and even the First World War, where the country rallied together to support the challenges during wartime at that time, and sold hundreds of millions of dollars of bonds back then. And now that we're facing the challenges of climate change and want to rally together here in our state and kind of maybe hopefully inspire these types of bond instruments across the country. And we have had inquiries already, but to really kind of make it more inviting for the average investor to kind of participate. And that's through really lowering the entry point down to $1,000. And we did that with our Green Liberty Bond that was issued in July of last year, the Series 2020 bonds. And we're repeating that this year with the Series 2021. The bond we issued last year was oversubscribed. It was a huge success. We received a number of 2 awards. Actually received an award, Bond Buyer magazine, The Bond Buyer, which is the magazine of note in the bond business and for innovation. So we were proud to receive that. And we also received 2 awards for our prior bond, which, why don't we go to the next page? That'll actually speak to it. So you see here, we've issued some bonds over the last couple of years, and this really goes to support our RSIP, our Residential Solar Investment Program. As many of you know, that we were running out of money for the incentives because solar had become so popular, but still needed some support. So even though we were gradually reducing the amount of incentives, the strains on the finances of the Green Bank to keep up with those incentives was growing. The legislature gave us the ability to enter into contracts with the two utilities, Eversource and Avangrid, to sell RECs to them for a 15-year period at a set price, which you see in the column which says Shrek price. So you see the estimated RSIP incentives, they're considerable. But what we do is we take those tranches of RECs and we monetize them by selling bonds against the anticipated revenue stream. And we have done that since 2019. The first issue you see there in the far right column, which shows that we issued nearly 40 million of bonds in the ABS market, and that was without any support from the Green Bank or the state. Yeah, that's the way those transactions get sold in the asset-backed securities market. And then the following year, which was last year in 2020, we issued nearly 17 million of state supported by the Special Capital Reserve Fund Green Liberty bonds, the inaugural Green Liberty bond. So that, as I said, was quite a success. And so now we're coming into tranche 4, raising more funds. And what this actually does, it gives us the ability to recover some of all of the incentives that we put out the door in the program, and administrative costs. There are heavy administrative costs on the front end of the program. And then there are continuing obligations to pay incentives over time, as well as administrative costs over time. So that gives us the funding to kind of recover those expenditures that we've already made, and then put some money aside in accounts so that we can have those funds available in the future to meet those future expenditures. With that, I am going to pass the baton over to Mike Yu, who will summarize the particulars of the bond that you'll be approving at a special board meeting that's coming up, and talk about the schedule. So Mike, and could you forward the slide one? Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Bert. So good morning, everyone, and welcome. So our structure for this issuance, the 2021 issuance of the Green Liberty Bond, is very similar to last year. It's going to be SCARF supported. So the reason for that is in order for us to get to the retail market, we've learned that while the ABS deal that we did in 2019 was quite successful, we need that state support credit enhancement in order for retail investors to get comfortable with it, in order for S&P to get comfortable with it, even though we do think from the sizing of the deal and how we project out the revenues from the utilities that we get based on the Shreks, that we haven't had an issue so far with generation and receipt of revenues to support the bond issuances. But it will be SCARF supported. The estimated amount right now is around 23 million, but of course that's going to fluctuate based on market conditions at the time we hit the market and close. So really what we're saying here is it's going to be sized based off of a estimated debt service coverage ratio. So what we do is based on, we had an independent engineer come in and analyze the portfolio and give us what they think is the, P50 numbers, which is 50% of the time we're going to meet or beat that number, and 50% of the time we won't. They also give us P90, which is a more conservative estimate, in that 90% of the time we should beat that benchmark. And also P99, which is 99 out of 100 times we should be able to beat that mark in any given year. So we actually size the deal off of two constraints. One is that based on the P90, we have a 1.15 times debt service coverage ratio. So every year we think that the revenue from utilities will be at least 1.15 times what the debt service ratio is. But also on top of that, we look at the P99 and say, okay, in any year, does that ever drop below 1 times? And the answer is no. We have at least a 1 times coverage ratio based on that P99. So as I said before, it's quite conservative sizing. So we think there's going to be a lot of coverage, and it's quite unlikely that there will be we'll ever need either the Green Bank or the state to step in to support the structure. It's going to be a combination of serial bonds and a term bond. So the serial bonds are, they have specific maturities. So you can buy a 1-year serial bond, a 2-year serial bond, all the way out to one that comes due in 2031. And each one of those will be a fixed interest rate. So you can sort of pick and choose where, how long of a duration you want and what the interest rate associated with that is. That was a quite successful structure last year with a lot of retail investors interested, especially in the shorter term stuff. It's going to pay out twice a year with interest coming due May and November, and principal due in November 15th. Although the November of 2021 this year, it may just be interest only. That'll sort of remain to be seen on the structuring side. And we have a minimum denomination of $1,000, which is the same as last year. That's sort of the smallest we can get to, based on sort of the standard structures and investing guidelines. We are working for future issuances to try to drive that down. We want to get more equitable access to even $500 or $100, and we're working with third parties on that front. But right now it's still that is not developed enough for us to use for this issuance. But they will be climate certified. We had Kestrel verifiers come in and last year and put their stamp of approval that these are climate bond compliant, and so they will do that again this year. And all told, it's about a 23 to maybe 24, maybe even $25 million issuance, depending on what the market rates are. Next slide, please. So here's the timeline. So we've sent OPM and OTT our self-sufficiency findings, which we've included as an appendix to the memo to the board. And we're meeting them with next week to present the proposal and walk them through the self-sufficiency findings. And hopefully from there, we'll be able to work to get the SCARF enhancement. And then the following week, we'll have a special board of directors meeting to approve to have a request to approve the financing schedule, to approve the indenture, and to move forward with launching and closing the deal. We have an investor presentation following shortly thereafter, which will be recorded and placed online and accessible to everyone. And then coinciding with Earth Day, that's when we have our big marketing push. Rudy and the marketing team have been working quite hard to take advantage of Earth Day and get all the sort of the intangible value we can out of that. Get everyone to buy green Liberty bonds for their friends and family and mitigate climate change. And then once we get all the retail orders in and some institutional orders, we'll be closing in early to mid-May. So
Great.
Open up to any questions.
Thank you, Mike.
Does anybody have any questions?
Hi, this is John Harity. I have a comment, which is just to continue to work on getting the price down, because I know that there are a lot of people that $1,000 is just too much for, but they would come in at a lower level. And just this week, a friend of mine was asking about the green bond and saying that she thought she would get one as a gift for someone. And then I said, well, the minimum is $1,000. And then there was silence on the phone. So, if we could get it, I know it's difficult, but whatever we can do to bring that price down would be great.
Thanks, John. We're working on it. We're in conversations right now with a group that might make it possible to get below 1,000. It is a challenge, but we're working on it. But thanks for that.
This is Lonnie. So yesterday, So you guys informed the various investment companies 2 days ago or something that this was coming? Bert?
Yes. I'm not sure what and Mike, you might be able to help out here. I'm not sure what the pre-marketing Stiefel and Ramirez have done. But I think they cannot talk about the issue specifically because there are certain rules and regulations until, as is shown on the screen here, that April 9th date with the preliminary official statement is issued. You can't really talk about the particulars of the bond in any detail because it could be construed as offering in advance.
So this is good that I didn't know a lot about this this current
Yes.
your current, because I got a call yesterday from one of the big they manage the high net worth, a lot of the high net worth family management companies, investment companies, and they want these bonds. And they were, trying to get to. I said, I don't know anything. Luckily, I just come from Walgreens, so I have one of those long receipts that they give you at Walgreens to write on the back of. But
Yeah.
Stifel is that's their instrument for buying the stuff. But they bought a lot last time, and they particularly love the 10-year ones, the longer ones, because they said the market with all of these scary speculative stocks that were skyrocketing and then plummeting, that too much money was going into that by, as one of the people said, the uneducated investment manager. And more and more apparently are talking about these bonds, and also the socially conscientious investors want them. So I thought that was really interesting. But everybody's trying to find out how to get in early.
Oh, well, well, I think that everyone should just direct folks to our bond link website. If people will merely Google CT Green Bank Green Liberty Bonds, it will pop right up in the Google search engine, and you can click on the bond link that will come up, and you'll get to the first slide that I showed everyone on the screen with Brian Garcia there, and the information is all there, and it will be updated on April 9th with the most recent particulars of this bond.
And just to circle back, and the 10-year is going to be a significant portion of the ones that we're offering.
Yeah, if you could back up the slide deck one more, please. You'll see down there the term bond. It shows 6 million. So roughly just about 25% of the issuance is in the long term.
Okay, great.
I think the 10-year, the spot on 10-year is 1.6 million. But there's plenty of what's called the term bond, which is it gets the way that works is you buy that term bond. It's notionally a 15-year, an 11 to 15-year maturity, and that's because a portion of the bonds gets retired each year. You just don't know which bonds are going to be retired. It's kind of a random sequence.
Okay, so Stiefel will know all this stuff, right?
They will, and
Good.
as well as the they will certainly know it, and they'll be able to talk about it in detail starting on the 9th of April.
Marvelous. Any more questions or comments?
Yeah, I do actually. Bert, this is Steve Meyer. What kind of a discount from a yield standpoint do green bonds trade relative to comparable debt, say in the 10-year space? What's the give up to buy a green bond versus another municipal bond issuance?
Yeah, that's a good question and a much debated issue. I might ask Eric to weigh in on that. I think there is a little bit of a benefit in the secondary market where the price of the bond gets bid up which reduces the yield.
Yep.
So and so that there is a bit of a premium in the, once they start to trade because they're scarce. So it's difficult to say, and I guess we could go in and kind of track that against. It's really hard to say, because are they valuing our bonds? I was going to say we could look at them compared to, say, some of the GO bonds that are out there, or some of the other quasi bonds that are out there in the same maturity. But it's really hard to do that, because is it really exactly the same? Are people viewing that risk exactly the same? So it's really hard to really do that analysis. But there is believed, particularly these days, to be a bit of a yield discount that is achieved, but it's clearly in the secondary market because of demand.
Gotcha. That's helpful. There's a lot of money moving into the space, and to your point, that there are a limited number of these bond issues, so demand just drives the price up and the yield down. But I think this is a wonderful initiative, by the way.
And I'd like to just say, Steve, that one of the things that we're looking at more closely is perhaps issuing on a regular basis, maybe 1-year notes, because those would be equivalent to or a substitute for, say, a 1-year CD. It's a market it's a space that's really kind of vacant, and we noticed a lot of demand there. So we'd like to show some leadership in that space and come to market regularly with that. So we're working on that, and that might be actually our first foray into the sub $1,000 entry point, which could meet up with some demand that John Harity was mentioning earlier.
Yep. Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have, let's see, were there any more progress to targets updates? No? Okay, so we'll move on to, so we're moving on to item number 6, which is the incentive programs and the updates and recommendations. Is that Mackie?
Great. Yeah, we will start with Mackie on financing programs. And Mackie, again, if you could just step back, talk a little bit more about our programs and products, that would be very helpful. Thanks, Mackie.
Yeah, will do. Good morning. This is Mackie Dykes, the Vice President of Financing Programs. Can everyone hear me okay?
Perfect.
Great. Okay. So start here with just the whole picture, which is taken from your memo. We did actually have a slight update to staff's favor. We had some projects that were getting missed in our data flow. So these numbers are a little different than in your memo, but not too significant. So let's Brian's request sort of dive into individual programs with an overview and then a sort of explanation of what's going on for this year. So I'll start with multifamily. In this area, we've got a suite of products that we work with Inclusive Prosperity Capital to administer and take out to the market. We have our health and safety loan. That's the 8 multifamily H&S. We have a pre-development loan to help get energy related projects started. That's traditionally been for retrofits, but we're in the process of expanding that to new construction pre-development for multifamily. And then term, we've got a few products that fall underneath that. We have our Lime product, which is we co-administer, or really actually I guess primarily administered by Capital for Change with assistance from us and capital from us. And then our CPACE program also can provide financing to multifamily. So that is part of the term as well. And then broadly, we count any any financing, any term financing for a project that happens as a result of green bank activity, we count in this line item. So broadly at the multifamily level, as you'll see, expectations were quite low for the year. You'll see that reflected in the targets. Given COVID and its impact on this sector, particularly in the affordable space where our efforts are focused, when we set these targets, we just, we were, this was back in April, May, back in COVID was just hitting. We're a few months in, a lot of market uncertainty. So expectations were low. That's largely borne out. This snapshot is at the halfway point of the year. We have seen a little more progress on the health and safety side. We did close one loan, and we've got a good pipeline now, which should everything move forward will actually lead to exhausting all those funds. On the pre-development side, really not a lot of activity there. On the term side, we have exceeded our goals there. This is actually primarily private lending. Two of these projects were projects that were funded as a result of technical assistance through our pre-development loan that we gave a few years ago. So, we funded energy audits and other sort of engineering work to identify opportunities and scope those out. And then in two cases, you had a federal grant, or in one case, you had a federal grant come through, and another lender came in and funded the project. So, but because we were the catalyst for those, we count that towards our term goal. And then the other two projects that we've closed were both CPACE projects, one funded by the Green Bank and another by a private CPACE lender. So generally, doing well, at least in relation to the low expectations we had in the multifamily sector. SDEA, that's I'm going to jump up to just get some sort of going in reverse order here. This is in the middle. This is the Small Business Energy Advantage Program. This is a partnership with Eversource that we entered into about 2 years ago. This is a fantastic program. They've won national awards for it. That provides really a soup to nuts service for small businesses in the state. They're matched with a contractor. They get a free energy audit, and then they receive incentives. And where we come in is the financing for the program. The businesses can obtain 0% on-bill financing for up to 4 years. And then, as contrary to the name, this program also serves municipalities and the state of Connecticut. That is, it's the same thing from a program perspective, except on the financing side, the terms are actually a little more favorable. Municipalities can access now, thanks to the Green Bank becoming the capital provider, they can access up to $1 million in financing, and the state can access. It's actually unlimited financing with an individual loan cap of $1 million. So the Green Bank, through a partnership with Amalgamated Bank, provides the capital for that on-bill financing product. It's been it's been a great partnership between us and Eversource. It's allowed them to access cheaper capital than they were using before. So ratepayers are saving money there. And it's allowed the availability of capital to expand, leading to some of those expansions that I mentioned, more, larger loans for municipalities and larger loans for the state. However, as you can see, for this year, notwithstanding how great the program is that I just talked about, COVID has had a severe impact on this. The program is really run by Eversource. They manage the customer relationships and the contractor relationships. Back in May, when we set this goal, or when they set this goal, they were optimistic that at that time actually the program was fully shut down because of COVID. They were optimistic that they could get it up and running and hit these targets. That has not been the case. It is back up and running now, but it took longer than they thought, and COVID just had a larger impact. There are some bright spots. I mean, we have increased. We purchased the loans from EverSource on a quarterly basis. So we've done a purchase since the numbers reflected here. So the numbers already are a little higher. We do anticipate at least one more purchase this year. The 2021 pipeline already has 350 projects representing approximately $5 million in funding. Thanks to that expansion that I mentioned with the state and availability of financing, there's potential for $5 to $10 million in funding for state of Connecticut projects. And then we also work with EverSource to expand the size of businesses that can access this. This is the Small Business Energy Advantage. We've got another component of this program, which is the Business Energy Advantage program, not the small business, just the business. That was just kicked off earlier this year. And contractors have been selling that the last few months, and they already anticipate $1 million in funding needs there. So, I don't think we'll hit the goal that EverSource laid out this year for these projects. As you can see, we're already quite far behind at the halfway point, and don't think the last 6 months we'll be able to make it up. But there are some bright spots for the program, especially in large part due to what our capital being made available has allowed them to do, has allowed EverSource to do with the program. So I'm gonna. Oh, sorry. Yes. Any questions?
Hey, Mackie, it's Eric. So yeah, it's just another indication of the impact of this pandemic, which is so unfortunate. I just wanted to ask, as you know, there's a bill that would expand the opportunities for what CPACE could be used for. And which I don't have a problem. I just want to keep an eye on the numbers, and particularly maybe as we go forward. You mentioned there's sort of what I'll think of as the classical CPACE project. We're now getting government state projects, and then if the bill passes, there'll be additional types of projects available. So it might be helpful. My concern obviously is that there continue to be enough and that we continue to work to promote this opportunity with the business and industry community. So it may or may not make sense going forward to maybe break some of these numbers out, relative to the types of projects or the type of customer or something like that, just so we can keep an eye on sort of now that CPACE is growing in terms of the universe. Might be helpful to keep an eye on each piece of each solar system, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So SBEA is separate from CPACE. But anticipated going into CPACE. Certainly we'll track those two programs separately as we're doing here. If the CPACE bill passes, which we'll talk about this in a minute, but what he's referencing is a proposal now to expand CPACE into resiliency related measures. That would not expand the ability of SBEA. It's like funded through the other hat you wear, Eric. That's a partnership with the CNLM funds that the utilities administer. That would still be limited due to what those funds can be used on to electric and gas measures. So SBEA would remain focused just on energy measures. We are, to your point about customer segments, we are trying to work with the utilities to extract that, to be able to do that type of analysis. We're almost there. I'm hoping by the time we do our end of year reporting, I'll be able to do it, to tell you this much this much loans were to state, this much to muni. It should, since this is atypical than our other programs in that we don't actually administer the program. It's the utilities that do that. We don't have the data flexibility that we do. So almost there, and I hope to be able to meet what you're asking for by when I do my end of year reporting.
Terrific. Okay, thanks, Mackie.
And then transitioning into CPACE. So this is Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. This is a program that makes financing available for energy-related measures to commercial, as the name implies, commercial and industrial properties, nonprofits, multifamily buildings of 5 units and above. Really anything that's not a municipal or state or single-family home. This is it's financing that's secured by a benefit assessment on the property, which the Green Bank is the statutorily designated administrator of this program and the ability to place that assessment, working in partnership with the towns that have opted into the program. This has been it's our oldest sort of non-residential program. It's one of the most successful CPACE programs in the country on a per capita basis. It is the most. So we work with a number of private lenders who make these CPACE loans to building owners, and we secure those loans with the CPACE assessment. We also offer financing through the program. So we're, in addition to being the administrator, we're also a lender. So when you look at the CPACE numbers, the second line item here, that includes a mix of both loans that we've made as well as those that third parties have made. In terms of progress to targets, CPACE is in pretty great shape, almost right where you'd want to be at the midway point through the year. From a projects perspective, we're just over halfway through the goal. From a capital deployed standpoint, as you can see, we've already exceeded the goal. This is thanks to the first large-scale new construction project that was financed through CPACE in the state. This was a $6.5 million investment in Marriott Residence Inn in Stamford. We're not anticipating, that was made by Greenworks Lending, one of our third-party lenders. We had not anticipated that when we came up with these goals. So, that vastly exceeds our average project size. So that's what's leading to already meeting the capital deployed goal. From a solar capacity deployed standpoint, we are behind. This is due to setting aside the new construction project. Our projects this year are smaller than we've seen in years past, and that we based our goals on those averages. So, the solar projects have been a little smaller, so you see us behind there. So overall, I'll talk about the PPA, which are the other two line items on here, in just a second. But I'm going to move on to another slide for that. But just at a broad level here, aside from SBEA, which has not performed to really the utility expectations, because that's what we're basing on here. I think we're in a good place for the halfway point for the year. If you take out SBEA, we're at 47% of the project goal for overall for financing programs, and 41% of the capital deployed goal. And then if you'll go to the next slide for what we'll talk about on the PPA, we're pretty happy for the last 6 months, the activity we're going to see. So our power purchase agreement, this is the final product or program from the chart from before. This is the Green Bank PPA. This is where we own solar systems for entities that either don't have the ability to take the tax credits available for solar themselves. So the economics don't work, and these things like nonprofits, municipalities. In the case of the PPA, we own the system and sell the electricity to the building owner at a discount to their utility rate. And we also have some customers who they're for-profit entities that just prefer a PPA structure because it's really low or no risk to them. They don't have to worry about O&M or the any risk in terms of system production. That's all borne by us as the third-party owner. So this is a great structure, especially for nonprofits and municipalities to go solar. We about a year ago, we started our solar marketplace assistance program, Solar Map. I've talked about it before, but this is a program that's geared towards municipalities and the state of Connecticut to provide assistance to help them go solar. So through our PPA, we provide financing, but financing is just one of the barriers, or figuring out how to pay for a project, which our PPA solves that problem, is just one of the barriers that municipalities or the state encounter in doing a project. There's numerous other ones, technical due diligence, running a process, procurement process, dealing with the bureaucracy of the legal documentation. So we developed the Solar Map program to help with all that, to basically start with your municipality or state agency. Just give us a list of all your buildings that you're interested in, and we'll take it from there. We'll do all the due diligence. We'll run a competitive process to find a affordable and trusted contractor to build it, and then we'll own it and we'll pay for it. We'll provide all the capital up front, and we'll sell you the power at a discount. And using a contract that the state of Connecticut, the AG, the DAS, all the agencies that are involved in signing off on something like this. We've already done the work with them to put templates in place, so you don't need to to worry about the headache of dealing with all that sort of bureaucracy and approvals. And that program has gone very well. When we made these goals, we back in before FY21, this program was still just getting started. We started to see success with it. It allowed us at the midpoint of the year to actually vastly increase our PPA goals. We do a mid-year recast of goals. Thanks to this interest and success we were seeing, we increased our capital deployed goal from 4 million to 25.7 million, and our solar capacity installed from 6.3 megawatts to 15.4. So we were starting to see the success then, which made us comfortable to do those expansions in the targets. And in the last few months, we've seen the projects really come to bear to meet those targets. Working with a group of 5 municipalities, we ran a process this year for 16 different projects spread across those municipal and Board of Education facilities. And then working with the state, we've closed out our first round of projects with them, which was 10 projects, very sizable portfolio there, 11 megawatts, just under 19 million in capital deployed, primarily at Department of Correction facilities. So when you take as this slide is showing, when you take where we are today with the close or where we are, when the snapshot is taken for this update, which is the end of Q2, that's the closed column. When you take the solar map activity that we've been able to do this year, all throughout the year, that is now closing in Q3 and Q4, you can see that it's bringing us on track to meet and in almost every other case, or almost every case, vastly exceed the target. So The PPA, thanks to the Solar Map program and the great work that the team's been doing there, is on track to deliver what will be a great year for the PPA. And then overall, again, from the financing program standpoint, setting aside SBEA, we're on track to meet all our goals. So that was a lot to throw at everyone. I'll pause there for any questions or comments.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Thank you for really getting that lead by example thing going.
Yeah, it's,
all those years. Oh God.
It just took a little kick. Now that we've got it up, we're in the next month or so, we'll be releasing another RFP for state projects. It's going to be about the size of this first portfolio, another 10, 11 megawatts. And we're actively working with municipalities now to build a second round of the municipal program. So, hopefully FY22 we'll be able to have similar numbers to this.
That's great. Any questions? Nope. Everybody's doing the analytics right now.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Mackie. So we're going to hear from Sergio too, right? Sergio Carrillo, about what's going on with the stuff that's off the memo, the battery storage programs we're trying to get going, and the tariff approach.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Hi, Sergio. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sergio Carrillo, and I'm the director of the incentive programs. In the first slide, quick overview of the progress to targets. By way of background, the residential solar incentive program provides incentives and financing for residential solar PV systems. Incentives can be paid in three ways: directly to contractors as an upfront incentive to lower the cost of adoption of solar PV to homeowners. It can be paid as a performance-based incentive, or PBI, paid to contractors quarterly over 6 years, to lower the cost of adoption of solar PV through PPAs and leases, making solar PV adoption affordable and accessible to all homeowners. And there is a third incentive, that is the LMI PBI, or low and moderate income, or targeting low and moderate income households that receive a higher incentive level. The numbers I'm showing are as of March 17th, so they're very current and informative. Some highlights about these progress to targets is that overall the incentive programs have exceeded or are on pace to exceed the targets. In terms of the residential solar investment program, we have surpassed the targets across the board. And we need to recognize that these numbers will likely change in the future due to addition of new projects and cancellations of existing projects and so forth. But in general, I'm confident we're gonna be above the targets. As you know, we have already transitioned to RSIP, which is the 32 megawatt extension the board approved at the end of last year to foster the sustained orderly development of the local solar industry. But RSIP metrics are not included in these numbers. From a battery storage perspective, the program did not launch and is not expected to launch in the fiscal year. Pura is preparing a battery storage program that is expected to be effective in January 1st of 2022. We expect a decision, or the timeline for a draft decision is April 9th. So within 2-3 weeks, we should have a draft decision in terms of for the battery storage program. However, as shown in my footnote here, we have approved 241 residential solar PV projects that are paired with battery storage, totaling more than 6 megawatts of capacity. But these projects obviously did not receive battery storage incentives. SMART-E, there is a program that provides financing for health and safety, home performance and efficiency, and heating and cooling measures. Both solar and the other category, and the other category meaning anything but solar, meaning boilers, furnaces, water heaters, heat pumps, EV charging stations, etc., are on target. They currently sit at slightly under 70% progress to target. But with the new spring special offer that was launched earlier this month, I think it was on the 15th of March, we expect an uptick in SMART-E project applications, and we will be able to meet the targets. And last but not least is the low-income loans and leases, which is basically all of the POSIGEN projects. Servicing low and moderate income households. We have also exceeded the target, and yeah, the expectation is that we will close the year above targets. Is there any questions about this slide? All right, next slide, please. This is on RSIP status. The chart on the left shows RSIP, and RSIP has a statutory target of 350 megawatts of deployed capacity, and we have approved 349.1 megawatts of projects. Of these approved projects, we have completed 324.5 megawatts. Which represents roughly 93% of all approved projects. We're talking about more than 41,000 residential solar PV systems completed. The chart on the right shows RSIP-E. And as I mentioned, RSIP-E is capped at 32 megawatts of approved capacity, and it was designed in 2 steps. Step 16, that has a capacity of 10 megawatts. We have approved 9.9 megawatts of projects, and 0.9 megawatts of projects have been completed. Keep in mind that RSIP kicked in November of last year, so these are fairly recent projects, right, that are expected to complete over the next few weeks and months. Step 16 was designed to allow us to backfill RSIP and ensure that RSIP reaches its statutory target of 350 megawatts of deployed capacity. And the backfill, because historically there has been between 15 and 20% of project cancellations. So if you see at the top of the RSIP bar, those 24.5 megawatts of projects that are approved but are expected to complete, we could expect between 15 and 20% cancellations. And if that occurs, we would then use step 16 projects to backfill RSIP. Again, the idea is to maximize RSIP capacity or deployment. In step 17, step 17 has a capacity of 22 megawatts. We have approved 5.1 megawatts of project of which only 0.1 megawatts have been completed. Again, it's fairly recent projects. Step 17 was designed to support the sustained orderly development of the local solar industry in anticipation of RSIP running out of capacity by mid-year. Any questions about these? All right, next slide, please. And here, well, you can see two donut charts for steps 16 and 17, and it's a breakdown of the incentives in each of those steps. EPBBs, or expected performance based buy down, PBI, the performance based incentive, and the LMI PBIs. What is important to highlight here is that historically, PBIs, yes, PBI percentages has been around 75% or higher historically. However, in RSIP we can see that it's around 55%. By the time we announced RSIP, one of the major third-party owned contractors, Sonova, announced that they were leaving RSIP, and Sonova at times held 40% market share of RSIP. So I think this is what's happening here, right? It's a reflection of what we knew was going to happen. From an LMI perspective, the percentage, the historic percentage, has been around 5%, and right now is close to 1.5. And this responds to an increase in rejections of some of the POSIGEN projects for a variety of reasons, operational issues that we are working to correct. Had to do with missing documentation, inadequate shade reports, etc. All of these issues are being addressed directly with POSIGEN, and I would expect a significant increase in POSIGEN project approvals over the next few weeks. Is there any question about this?
Yeah, this is Brenda. I had a question about what you just said. Would you mind just repeating again what was going on with POSIGEN's record keeping?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
She wanted to hear again what was going on with POSIGEN.
With POSIGEN, yes. Well, it has been recently we have been an increase in rejections due to inadequate shade reports, right? Reports that just don't meet the requirements of the Green Bank. We have met with them. We prepared guides on how to do shade reports. We met with them, and I requested that all the personnel that was involved with shade reports be present. We brought the Aurora representatives, which is the platform that is used to generate the shade reports. And we had a meeting last week just to educate them and tell them, hey, this is what we expect from you. And if you stick to these guidelines, we should not expect any additional rejections, project rejections in the future. So let's see how that goes, right? But that's that's the biggest and stickiest issue right now with the POSIGEN projects. There are other issues when they generate the documentation, the contracts that are missing fields and completed documents that will not be approved. So they have to be sent back to POSIGEN. And every time you reject an application, that means 3-4 weeks of delay. So again, we're working with them to address those issues. As I said, we have increased the communications and the collaboration with Posigen. I expect the number of applications to be rejected to be fairly low moving forward.
So this is Mike Lee. Just a follow-up question on that. So I guess I'm curious as to like what's the explanation for why we're having more issues now since Posigen has been running the program for a number of years.
Yeah, Mike, great question. Celia, if you want to jump in to help me out, that would be great. But yes, these issues have been around for a long time, Mike. That's my understanding. We have in the past given them waivers for some of these projects, right? To waive some of these requirements, right? But it has become the norm, and we wanted to nip it in the bud, avoid keep providing waivers, but address the real issues, right? And the shade report is just a training issue, and we took it to ourselves to train them. And that's what we just did. The contracts issues, we met with them and say, guys, listen, these incomplete contracts, everyone else, all other contractors are doing it. You should be able to meet those requirements, right? So I think those problems have been there for a long time. It's just a matter that we're not providing waivers anymore. We're just trying to actually address those issues and fix those operational issues that they're having. And we're helping them and supporting them in that process.
Hi, Sergio and the board. This is Celia Price. Thanks, Sergio. And I think they may have had some turnover as well in staffing. So they were sort of getting better organized. And I think we took the opportunity to make sure that all the new people were fully trained. The shading reports and things like that can be tricky, especially for new staff. And so that is something that we have trained other contractors on. And our team and Sergio did a really great job reviewing all of that with Posigen. So as Sergio said, I don't think those issues will continue.
Any questions or comments?
All right, previous slide, please.
Which slide, Sergio?
The previous one, the regulatory and legislative.
Okay, well, why don't you go ahead and cover this recent development, Sergio? We're going to come back to policy and regulation.
Awesome, fair enough. And one last thing that we wanted to provide you with a heads up, it relates to the phase out of the 3G networks by AT&T and T-Mobile. AT&T plans to phase out the 3G network by February of 2022. Sorry. And the importance of this development is the fact that installed residential solar PV systems could potentially lose connectivity and their ability to transfer solar generation information to our monitoring platform. At the moment, we are assessing the magnitude of this issue, trying to quantify the number of meters that could be affected. We're conducting our due diligence. It's a little early to come up with a number, but we're conducting our due diligence, and I expect to come back next month with a full risk assessment, right? With the quantification of meters, what the cost of replacement, or if that's what needs to be done, what the cost of replacement would be, and what measures we're going to take moving forward. But and come up with a strategy, right, to tackle this issue. But I think it has a significant potential impact on our business, and it's an all hands issue right now. So we're working on it, and expect a much more detailed update next board meeting. Is there any questions about that?
Yeah, this is Matt Rinelli. Yeah, I just wondered, it's an interesting issue. There must be other remote telemetry type of systems out there that are in the same boat other than solar. I think of there's a lot of remote telemetry in water resources and stuff like that. Have we looked around? I wonder if there's sort of an FCC issue here, and there are other groups that are becoming aware that they're going to face this like loss of service for all their remote telemetry.
Yeah, and this is Lonnie. I mean, is there any onus on AT&T to pitch in economically to help us transition? Is that in the contracts?
Yeah, those are great questions. I know in the natural gas industry, that's how it works, right? That's how, by telemetry, that's how you operate the networks, and you close valves and open valves in a transmission system. So this should be impacting a lot of industries. But yeah, I don't have a
Are you talking to the Attorney General about this? Because we're some other entities with net neutrality and a whole bunch of these things. We're engaged with him on a whole nother level with this, and he's really eager to look at this, and also to look at a regional aspect of it, to team up with other attorneys general in dealing with these, because these are issues, these are going to be ongoing, and
yeah,
it'd be great to get him in the game, because he's really good at pulling together other AGs and circling the wagons.
Well, yeah, we haven't done that outreach, but great suggestions. We're taking back these suggestions, and we will explore all of them. So we'll provide an update in the next board meeting, or as soon as we have news.
Oh, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions or observations? So speaking of changes, so there's a lot going on, as we're all hearing, in the public policy and regulatory arenas. And Brian, are you there? Brian Farnham, did you want to tell us what's going on?
Sure, I'd be happy to jump in. We've got two different slides that we can jump back and forth on. So the first one is House Bill 6571. This is for our commercial PACE program. This is now to expand us, because right now our statute really limits us to doing clean energy deployment, and this will allow us to do resiliency. And it also exempts electric vehicle infrastructure and resiliency from what is called the SIR test. That's the savings to investment ratio test, which basically, typically, what happens in a commercial PACE deal is you finance an energy improvement. That energy improvement will provide cost savings to the property, right? Because if you're putting in solar, or if you're doing energy efficient, it's going to bring down your electricity bill. And by doing that, that frees up cash flow, and that cash flow could potentially be used to pay back the debt service. So, but when you have electric vehicle infrastructure, or you're doing resiliency, that savings to investment ratio test really isn't applicable, or it would be hard to apply that when it's a non-energy change. And then it makes some other revisions, and that's moving along nicely. Additionally, there's also we have a Pura docket 200701, and this relates to, and if anyone's been in my office in Stamford, I actually have a sign that says no acronym. So I love this whole new idea of bringing it back a step. This is like my Christmas. So many of you may know this, but right now under Connecticut energy policy, there's net metering that is used. And then what happens is, and then people will apply to something called a ZREC or an LREC, a zero renewable energy credit or a low renewable energy credit. Basically think of that as like fuel cells, because the fuel cell industry is so important to the state of Connecticut. And we're transitioning from this system to a tariff-based system, and it's moving that process along from the statute that was passed a couple years ago. And another thing I just want to point out too, we use this term, we also often talk about behind the meter or front of the meter. And I do want people to know that when you hear that term BTM, behind the meter, in front of it, it really comes down to how the solar system or the energy system's position is in relationship to the electric meter. So when you think of a BTM system, that provides power that can be used on site. It doesn't have to pass through a meter, while a front of the meter system provides power to off-site locations. Think of that as you put solar panels on your house, it's being used for the energy load at your home, it's not going through the utility. That's a behind the meter system. When you talk about bigger systems for people that are putting stuff back onto the grid, that's a front of the meter system. That's really where, for example, I think DEEP really plays a much bigger role than, say, the Green Bank would. We go to the other.
This is before we move on real quick. This is Mackie. Just on this item, this is I want to mention this is a huge change for the solar industry in Connecticut. This transition from net metering, and on the residential side, our RSIP program for the incentive, on the CNI side, the ZREC or LREC program, which was providing the incentive to this tariff. The Green Bank was very active with Pura on the residential tariff development side of things. It's still not quite done, but nearing completion. On the commercial side or the non-residential, that process has just started more recently at Pura, the development around the tariff program there. We plan on playing just an active role there. We submitted comments on the utilities plans, advocating for several changes that we think would help the financing of these programs, as well as help to serve some of the communities that we typically advocate for. And broadly, this transition is we anticipate bringing several changes to the market from a financing needs standpoint. So we're starting the work now to figure out what our products. I mean, at minimum, we're going to have to position CPACE differently. CPACE is over 75% of the projects are solar. So we're going to have to position it differently and sort of frame it differently for the customer under this new policy. And then on the PPA side, I think new opportunities and sort of product designs could open up. So I think all for the good. This should bring ratepayer savings, and really should allow some new types of structures in the market that might open up opportunities, especially when you think about, I think what Brian will talk about next, what's going to be happening in storage, sort of combining this new solar structure with what's to come on solar. So sorry for interrupting, Brian.
No, great points, Mackie. And maybe we can hop over to slide 21. I think it's 21, perfect. So another kind of the big legislative and regulatory updates, energy storage is really kind of the focus now, I think, from both a state level and at a national level. And many people have always said energy storage is the holy grail of having intermittent energy sources like solar PV and wind really take off and get that next level. So there is this Senate Bill 952, and this sets a 1,000 megawatt target for 2030 for behind the meter residential and commercial industrial, and for front of the meter systems. And that's, that's moving forward. The Green Bank supports this bill, particularly the first few sections that really pertain to the establishment of deployment targets and programs supporting behind the meter residential and non-residential and front of the meter grid tied energy storage systems. So we think we're very excited about this, and it actually marries up very well with what's going on over at PURA in the regulatory process, and that's under the docket number 171203 RE03, and we're heavily involved in that, and that's about 580 megawatts of in BESS. I bet you if I pulled everyone, but that's battery energy storage systems, I believe. And that's going to bring 580 megawatts of battery energy storage, and that can either be standalone or you can pair it with solar PV systems by 2030. And we're going to have a program that's likely going to be jointly administered between the Green Bank and the EDCs, the electric distribution companies. So that's Eversource and UI. We're really, really excited about that. The other big docket that we're involved in is the SCEP, and that's community solar, shared solar. And I actually this might be a good opportunity for Brian to even jump on this, because I got to give credit to Brian Garcia on this one. It really came up with, I would say, an innovative approach to potentially get additional benefits to these subscribers under the community solar program, where they will be able to get, there's going to be savings when you sign up for shared solar if you're a subscriber. So a subscriber is a person who's part of that shared solar system. And instead of just reaping that benefit of the savings, what we've kind of come up with this idea is like, well, you could, forego some of that savings, and then we could do weatherization and other types of improvements for low to moderate income individuals to give them this added benefit. Anything else you want to add, Brian? Because it really is your baby, and it's pretty impressive. All right. Well, waiting for him, I'm going to jump into the last one.
Brian, you're on mute. I'm sorry, EG.
There you go. Thanks, E. Thanks, Brian. Sorry about that. Yeah. So as Mike and Bert laid out with the solar home renewable energy credit, this is really kind of a lesson learned there, where we are creating the present value from the expected future stream of cash flows from solar on homes. In this case, there is a 2.5 cent per kilowatt hour credit that goes onto a participating homeowner's utility bill. That comes to about $18 per month, $210 per year, and they have a 20-year subscription, so about a $4,200 cash flow over a 20-year period. The question we raised is, why couldn't we just issue a green Liberty bond based on the expectation of that future cash flow to generate cash today that we could then use to invest in weatherization on the property for that participant? So working with Brenda and her team in Operation Fuel, the Utilities Deep and others, we want to try to see if we can bring those future cash flows to today to deliver more on the public policy targets that we're after, weatherization, perhaps even addressing arrearages and other things by bringing the present value of that cash flow to today. So we're very active in that docket, trying to see if we can assign those subscriber credits to the Green Bank if a customer wants to do that.
Perfect. And then lastly, we talked a little bit about this last docket, 200701. This is for the residential solar tariffs. As we move away from net metering to a tariff structure, the Green Bank is very much advocating on behalf of low to moderate income and distressed communities to have specific adders in those areas to ensure that our solar policy is inclusive. And then there's other parts about it with the HES requirement, which is the home energy, is a program run through the Energy Efficiency Fund, kind of our sister energy fund organization to ensure that certain energy efficiency projects done. So we're trying to encourage as we can that when people do get solar, that they're also doing these other types of energy efficiency upgrades. But I know we're getting a little bit late on time, so that's that, and I'll entertain any questions.
Brian, this is Matt. These are all really exciting. You just look at these and like 10 years ago, they wouldn't have been possible. So it's great. One thing I didn't see, and just to put on your radar screen, and I'll find the bill number offline. Someone told me there's a bill in labor that would require renewable energy projects to have, you know, to meet certain wage requirements, even private projects. I'm not sure, again, secondhand, but just might be something we want to track because it could be a soft cost adder. I'm not saying what the right position on the bill is, but I didn't see it on your list if you're not aware of it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was on a U.S. Department of Energy call yesterday, and there was a big part of the conversation was, you know, equity in the workforce, and obviously under the Biden administration, there's a much larger push to bring in unionized labor, and and at the end of the day, it's always going to be a balancing act between you want to, you know, if you can ensure a livable wage, you know, obviously that's a great thing. But at the same time, putting on additional mandates that, you know, you have to pay at certain scales. I think like maybe it's Oregon, one state has that, for example, for the licensing requirement for solar, but most states don't. So it's kind of, I kind of look at it from the green bank, you know, our mission is focused on deploying clean energy, economic development, but this is kind of that's a tough spot for us to play a role one way or the other. So I think when it comes down to things like that, we would probably almost want to bring that back to the board for a conversation before we kind of jump in to playing there. So I don't think anything's going to happen this session on this. And I think with COVID, we are somewhat limited in you know, big changes or things that would be, you know, deemed controversial for better or for worse. So you know, but there is a lot of conversation about that topic.
And this is Mackie. I'll add, so yeah, we're aware of that. I think it passed out of committee yesterday even. My understanding is that there are, those requirements become applicable of projects at a certain size, which I think most of, if not all, we do currently, you know, the behind the meter projects fall below that. So, you know, as currently as I don't know how much of an effect it would have on our projects. But it's, either way, it's still something, you know, just because of its broader impact on the industry, something for us to watch.
Yeah, that was my only comment, just something to keep an eye on. I agree with Brian Farnan. Your comments, there's a lot of issues there, but certainly if it could affect us. So good. I just wanted to put it on your radar screen.
Thanks, Matt.
Any more observations or comments, questions? Okay, thank you, Brian. So clearly the Green Bank team has not just been sitting around. It's sort of working hard to meet and restructure our goals and programs and during a pandemic. So in addition to that, we're also moving and creating new headquarters. And I think Eric is going to get us up to speed on where we are with that. Eric?
Awesome. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess it was about 2+ years ago, we started looking at our leases and knowing that both were coming due this past December, we decided that we would try to identify some space that was more in line with our values as an organization. So something that was more sustainable and was more part of a community. And so we, as the board has heard previously, we had big searches in both markets in Stamford and in the Metro Hartford area, both outside the city and in the city. And ultimately, we kept our Stamford office in Stamford, but we identified some space that met those targets in both Hartford and in Stamford. So next slide. So in Stamford, we moved in November from 300 Main Street to 700 Canal Street. We technically moved to smaller space, but it feels a lot bigger. There's actually light in it, which is kind of a novel thing for us. And it's great. Staff is just really happy that have been there. I know Bert's there almost every day. And we're looking forward to getting more people in. As we're fully up and running there, aside from a conference room table. which is on order from a local manufacturer. We have been working with the landlord there to make the building more sustainable and in line with our mission. They have recently just kicked off an SBEA financed LED lighting retrofit for the building. We have looked at solar for the building, and it didn't quite pencil out thus far, but we have an open dialogue with them, and we'll continue to push to help make this building even more renewable. So next slide. So looking at Hartford, we identified space and signed a lease last year on just over 10,000 square feet at the CT Nonprofit Center. So we're soon to be neighbors with Operation Fuel and Brenda. So we've kicked off the build out of that space just after the first of this year, and it's underway. It's actually due to be finished up in terms of the build out Monday or Tuesday. So Monday we actually have our final punch list walkthrough, as it's called. This has been a big learning experience for me in terms of the construction industry. It's been great. But we've, if we move on to the next slide, you can see our schedule here. We still have a lot to complete, but we are looking to be up and running in that space on the 19th of April. You can see the picture here. This is actually one of our new conference rooms, or will be one of our new conference rooms once we move. Next slide. In terms of sustainability in the office space, we worked with the landlord and we've said, look, we're coming to town. We want to be your partner. We really want to make this one of the most efficient buildings in the state. And this is a 100-plus-year-old former factory. And so there are lots of unique challenges with it. Thus far, we've worked with them on sealing our office space, that it was pretty drafty. There were airflow issues coming up from the crawl space underneath. There were airflow issues around the windows and in the walls. So we've done some sealing work there. We are working with them on installing electric vehicle chargers. We have an ongoing solar project in terms of developing potentially a solar canopy on the adjacent parking lot and on the rooftop of the buildings there. And we're continuing to work to see what else we can do as HVAC equipment and other building equipment meets its useful life. We will look to see how we can replace this with opportunities that save the landlord money and reduce the carbon footprint. And the landlord has already started to look to apply for LEED Silver status for the building. So, and that picture there is of our open working space, and I think that's them putting in the flooring. So, next slide. Cool. So, and there are any questions on this, I'm happy to take them here or offline, and we do have some videos of the space that I'm happy to circulate. But they will probably be better next week as furniture starts to arrive.
Eric, this is Lonnie. So where are all the private offices for the board members?
Oh, just sign up online. We'll reserve you one.
Any questions or observations?
Just a quick question. This is Mike Lee. Is the build out an allowance from the property owner, or are we paying for that separately?
Sorry, say that again.
Is the build out of the space, the interior space, an allowance from the property owner, or are we paying for that separately?
It's a combination. So they gave us a generous tenant improvement allowance, and that came out to numbers off the top of my head. I think it's about $413,000. And then we are chipping in. We had budgeted an additional 200 and change to build that out. We are coming in below the budget for that 200 at the moment. I don't want to jinx myself, but because there are, great. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. So I believe now we're going to be dealing with some matters that involve personnel. So we're going to go into executive session. And Brian Garcia, Can you handle all the button pushing and everything that happens with that?
Oops. Sorry, I had my thing on mute again. Yeah, so thank you, Lonnie. Before we have the board move a motion to move to executive session, here are the steps that I'm gonna do. So first, I'm gonna request that Chris Baisden and Eric Schrago stay on the meeting with me and the board in executive session. So everybody else who is currently in the meeting, if you can check out, that would be great. And then I'm going to pause the recording, lock the room up with the board, and then we'll begin executive session. So just looking at the list here, so folks who aren't on the board or not Eric or Chris, if you can log out, that would be great. And then I will begin these steps. All right. All right, great.
Okay, so I need to ask for a motion to move into executive session. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's go, Brian.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, reconvening the public meeting. Do I need a motion to do that?
Sorry, that's right. You, there should have, sorry, my bad. There should have been a motion to exit executive session.
So moved.
Yeah, some, does anybody second?
Second.
All in favor? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anybody desperate to stay in executive session? Great, all right. So now, do I hear a motion to reconvene our public meeting?
So moved. John Harity.
Second, Matt.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed?
Aye.
Great, all right, so here we are. And after, much discussion, and we're going to do a motion to approve resolution 2.
This is Matt. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2, amended to apply the 3% merit increase to all of the officers, including the president and CEO.
Thank you, Matt. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, resolution 2 is approved.
Hey, Lonnie, this is Mike Lee. I'm
Hi,
going to
Mike.
abstain.
You're gonna, okay. So Mike's abstaining. The resolution is approved. And we were going to do an amendment to that resolution, or is that already self-contained within the resolution we just approved?
Lonnie, it's Matt. Could I suggest we have a second resolution and we can adopt it, now, or we can draft it and adopt it at the next meeting, that we draft a resolution recognizing and expressing the board's appreciation for the entire staff for their service and extra effort, during COVID, or however we want to word it. We might want to take the time between the meetings to word it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Matt. I think this is a really important resolution, and so why don't we do that? So do we have a motion to draft another resolution?
I don't know. We need a motion. I mean, if we do, but my suggestion is we draft it so it's suitably worded rather than try to do it on the fly, and we can adopt it at the next meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that. Everybody else okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
This is John Harity. Just as a point of information, do we have information or could we get it about the increases that the rest of the Green Bank employees got, if any?
Absolutely, John. Yeah, we typically do a summary memo.
Yeah.
So
I'll make sure the board gets a copy of that memo once it's complete.
Thanks.
Good. So I think we're at adjournment time. Do I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thanks, everybody. This was jam-packed. Thanks for hanging in there.
Thanks,
Bye, all.
all. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.